what's your number?
I'm 1,183.
And how many are there?
Well, this number down here is the biggest number at 2,000.
Get off that seat! There you go!
Hey, I wanted to do a quick video on e-bikes. I've had several people ask me about our e-bikes whenever I seem to be unloading or loading them back up in a truck or a van. There's a couple different types, and the other issue is, people are worried about, is it different than bicycling? And the other thing that is kind of a joke for me is people that are talking about it's cheating when you're on the trail or the path. Just for reference, if anybody cares, the guy that's cheating or the gal that's cheating is the one on the $4,000 or $5,000 or more Trek with carbon fiber frame and titanium bearings and clip-in pedals and all those things. And it's great that you can get out and go ride on a straight road bike, but by the same token, it's tough sometimes to get out and do that. And if you can just get out on a bike, if you're going to go to the store, get some milk, go over to the neighbor's house, nobody wants to get all suited up. But if you got that e-bike and it gets you out and gets you exercising rather than taking the car or not going, that's a huge win. And I gotta say, for us, the e-bikes for under $2,000 are the best investments we've made so far in the past couple of years, bar none, my opinion. When you are looking at e-bikes, there's a couple different types that you can look at. Okay, this is better. This is hub drive versus mid drive images. And if you look out here, the key is the hub drive is the one that has the motor in the actual wheel of the bike. The mid drive has the motor up in front of the drive unit. And the key with that is that this drive has a lot of torque, and it's in the back wheel, and it's durable, and it works great for pulling a load or on a snow bike or an off-road bike. But once it gets up to about 15 miles an hour, it's maxed. And because it doesn't have the gear reduction, it has to be a bigger, wider housing. Whereas this drive has the ability to be gear reduced dramatically, so you can use a much smaller motor to get the same level of torque. So from a reliability and cost standpoint, even though you have the complexity of a gearbox, this is the way to go for motor reliability. The downside is all of this torque goes through your derailleurs, your crank, your wheels. So notice that on this type, the hub drive, it's after all of your chain, all your pedals and everything. So the only real torque it's putting is to the spokes. Whereas this type has to go and take the power from the motor and put it on your chain and run it through your derailleurs and your entire drivetrain. So you're probably, with this type, going to get a little bit more wear and tear and need more adjustments on your derailleurs, but your risk of motor damage isn't as great. Sur-Ron, which actually makes more of a motor scooter than a bicycle, this display on their website really points out, see, this motor is cranking on the small sprocket and then it reduces to the front, and assume this would be the cranks on your bicycle, and that's what you're running with. So this is my hub drive, and it's a 750 watt hub drive. I've got a derailleur on it with a 7-speed, but notice that no matter how much I shift and go here, the hub, once it gets up to about 15 miles an hour, it's done giving me boost. But it doesn't put any wear and tear on any of these derailleurs. This, on the other hand, is what we've got for our mountain road bikes. And here, the motor is a Shimano unit up in front, and it feeds through a gearbox to the pedals. So you get up to 15, you shift, grab another gear, shift, grab another gear. So these bikes, we can actually pull high 20s for speed without an issue, and that seems to work pretty well. I don't think you need a throttle button. In some states, if you have a throttle button, you're no longer considered a bicycle and you're not allowed on the trails. So these bikes actually do not have a throttle button, whereas this one does have a throttle button on it, which, to be honest with you, once I started pedaling and using it, I never used the throttle. As long as you're turning the cranks on the pedal and putting force on, it gives you boost. The more pressure you put on, the more boost it gives you. So there's really no need for a throttle button. I will say that because these bikes can get going 25, 30 miles an hour, I would encourage you to be very careful with others. Stay 3 feet of distance. Other people did not volunteer to be in your peloton. If you and your buddies want to go and ride close and go fast and do whatever you're going to do, great, go do it. But the other people around you did not volunteer for that. So if you're going more than, say, 15 miles an hour on a good mid-drive bike, then either be super respectful on the trail, or if there is other traffic, get off the trail and go on the road. If you're going more than 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, you must be on the road anyway because you're going up to car speed. It's definitely worthwhile having removable batteries shown right here. Bikes that don't have removable batteries, they might be sleek and look cool and all, and it's great to be able for anybody to get up and pedal, but if you can't remove that battery, then you can't charge it while you're driving around. Not only is it cool to be able to take these batteries in the house, but leave the dirty, muddy bike outside and charge the battery, or take the battery up in an elevator to the hotel room or wherever you are, but leave the bike in the truck or the van. But when you're going from place to place, like when we're camping or trail riding, I've got an inverter in the truck. I can charge these batteries in the cab. I can't really do that easily without a bunch of extension cords and hassle if they're integrated to the bike. So I would recommend that for your first bike, you get the mid-drive like this, and you make sure it's got the removable battery on it, and you'll be happy because it's really just a bicycle with a little bit of boost to get you around. The one thing I would recommend, go to your local bike shop, not somebody that's selling some high-end, expensive name brand bikes. And if you Google it, you'll see that Giant builds most of the bikes for everybody else that exports them to the United States. So if you got a Scott or a Trek or a Specialized, and that's the only bike you can ride, there's a good chance it's just a Giant anyway. It's really about which derailleur sets you have, and there's a bunch of videos, or I could do one on the different levels of Shimano and SRAM derailleurs, because those are the only 2 brands of derailleurs you're going to have, and that's where most of the issues you're going to have with the bike are anyway. So whatever bike you get, great. Go to whoever's tuning your bike for you, because with the stress of the electric, you're going to have to get your spokes checked more often. If you treat it badly like I do, you're going to have other issues, and you're going to have to get your derailleurs checked more often because of the torque that's being put on them by the electric bike. So I hope that helps. Go out, get yourself an electric bike. If you're buying a starter bike like this one, you don't need to spend more than $2,000. And remember, an electric bike is heavier, it's going to rattle around, and it's going to be tougher to use. So if you're going to try and go riding off-road and being abusive with it, then either stay on a traditional bike and enjoy that, or make sure you're really willing to spend a lot of money on an electric bike that's capable of doing full single-track off-road riding. So remember, what's the best bike to get? The one you're on. You might have a heavy hub drive, fat tire bike that really caps out its boost at 15 miles an hour. You might have a center drive gravel bike that you really like to ride, and it gives you boost and you can pull out on the road and go up to 30 miles an hour comfortably. Or you might be old school and say, I'm just not going to ride electric. Whatever you want to do. Let other people do what they want to do. Have fun together. Enjoy it. The best bike to ride is the bike you're on right now. The best way to find that bike is make sure you check with your local bike shop.
This only feels good because you got the electric boost. If we didn't have the electric bikes going up this hill, I'd be off walking already.